Last night I was dreaming I was in my GMC. I was feeling kind of empty because it was just a 93, so I filled it full of fossil from the bosom of the earth, which I burned up quite a lot of on my long commute to work, where I worked at what I hated just to keep up with the bills, which I paid to meet the rising cost of feeling
When your time comes and your whole life flashes before you, is it going to hold your interest? You know? And isn't that what you're shooting for? As our infrastructure begins to decay, which it will, we need to be looking at these in-neighborhood solutions. Why can't we dream big? Why can't we have peace gardens if we want them? You know, all we have to do is really move forward, say we want something. My message today, and in the book I'm now working on, is that it's biologically, psychologically, geologically, and economically impossible to continue consuming at this frantic, destructive pace. Yeah, the world was like an Amoco, and I said, fill her up with a house, a car, a VCR, a lawn, all that stuff, but I had this nagging notion that enough did not exist, and at the end of every day I'd wonder, is this all there is? Yeah, last night I turned off the TV. I went outside, I talked to some neighbors out there, some real live people. We heard some birds chirping. There's still some of them left out there. And we're learning together that it's not necessarily what we earn that's important, but what we learn. We're waking up. In my teenage years, the bear was queasiness lurking amidst the euphoria of the 1960s. Everything was becoming automatic, comfortable, and convenient. Everything was up for sale. People's skills and crafts were suddenly expendable, and it felt to me like the whole country had inhaled laughing gas, laced with rat poison. And as Lily Tomlin says, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. We were becoming junkies, literally, consuming more junk but enjoying it less. A lot of money and effort was spent to fill every single moment with a product, leaving little time for healthy food, great relationships, or learning new skills. Because real wealth like this makes us feel content, you don't see many ads for smaller houses, backpacking, potluck dinners, or other experiences and products that reduce the GDP but elevate our gladness to be alive. You can't sell that stuff. The more we chased bargains and the paychecks that bought them, the more vitality slipped away from our towns. Now, if we want to experience Main Street the way it was in the good old days, we travel to Disney World, where smiling shopkeepers, the slow pace, and the quaintness remind us that our communities were once relatively free of affluenza. How will Disney portray the good old days of the suburbs in future exhibits? Will they orchestrate background ambience, highway traffic, lawnmowers, and beeping garbage trucks to make it more realistic? Will they recreate gridlock as bumper-to-bumper cars, complete with cell phones to tell our families we'll be late for the next ride? The elderly, the disabled, and low-income residents peeking out from behind the curtains? You know, I make a joke of it, but it's very true. You know, where can America's stranded non-drivers go in today's world? There's no colorful cafe down the block or bowling alley or tavern where neighbors can, quote, be apart together and mutually withdraw from the world. In search of better buys and higher tax revenues, consumers and city councilmen typically sacrifice first Strip Avenue and then downtown to the franchise developers, forgetting that much of a franchise dollar is electronically transferred to corporate headquarters. We used to get more nutritional value from each morsel of food than we now do, because conventional agriculture has mined the nutrients out of our soils. Popeye would have to eat 200 cans of spinach to get the same amount of iron as he got from one can 50 years ago. The question is, will an apple a day with less vitamin A still keep the doctor away? Apparently not, because Americans have the cheapest food in the world as a percentage of income, but we also have the most expensive health care. So what's the connection between those two things? The bottom line is that when we consume an iPod or a cup of coffee, we are actually consuming something much larger, the ecosystem that it came from. This kind of gets away from us. We're not looking behind that screen. Our lifestyle is not socially sustainable either. In our frenzy to have larger salaries and larger lawns, many face the paralysis of social isolation. A 2006 study by the National Science Foundation found that 1/4 of all Americans have no one they can discuss personal issues with? Nobody. Twice the number of lonely people as in 1985. But here's the good news. It's not really stuff we want anyway, but the values that the stuff symbolizes. People don't need enormous cars, they need respect, wrote Dana Meadows. They don't need closets full of clothes, they need to feel attractive, and they need excitement and variety and beauty. People don't need electronic equipment necessarily. They need something worthwhile to do with their lives. People need identity, community, challenge, acknowledgement, love, and joy. That's the real wealth. What do you think?
Our table decided, no, we would not choose the money.
You would choose the time.
We would choose the time.
Well, this is a very healthy group then, because Americans now work 160 more hours per year than we did in 1970. In the sequel to Affluenza, the video, there was a surrender of the Joneses in the very beginning of the program. The Joneses were standing on their front stoop and waving a white flag saying, please, don't try to keep up with us anymore. We're going to just try to simplify our lives. You know, we don't want to be the Joneses that people keep up with anymore. The game is over. If we can't make changes, what have we just done in the last 100 years? Even though a lot of those changes were not all positive, we changed the whole thing. Gary Snyder says, in the next century, or the one beyond that, they say, our valleys, pastures, we can meet there in peace if we make it. To climb those coming crests, one word to you and your children. Stay together. Learn the flowers. Go light.
I'm waking up. I'm waking up. The American dream. Last night I was dreaming of the one eternal hope that my life would be improved if the economy would grow, which already was a monster on a mission to consume and was eating almost everything and running out of room.